Welcome to the Hue Seth Show, where we discuss impact, philanthropy, startups, innovation, and venture capital. Tune in weekly for exclusive insights from investors, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from around the world. All right, so we have Looney on today joining us. This wasn't even planned at all. Like when I scheduled this time with you here, it was supposed to just be a synergy call, but as I was thinking, I'm like, dude, I'm going to have an opportunity to speak with Looney. We have to make sure this is in recording, because every time we have a conversation, I take a lot out of it. So for my selfish nature, I said, you know what, I'm going to see if he's up for recording, and obviously you are. And from there, just through quick dialogue, what should we record? And you said trucks, and I'm thinking maybe not trucks at this moment. Maybe we should look into something else. What was that?
Not what you think about. So let's talk about the realities of funding.
So today we're talking about the realities of funding. So, the floor is yours, Looney. Let's do the boring stuff first, though, just so our audience know who you are. If you could just give us a quick synopsis of yourself. Not saying that that's boring, but I know to you, you think that that's boring. So I'm saying that from your perspective. So if you could just give us a quick synopsis of yourself, and then we could dive into the conversation.
Sure. So Luni Libes, I've been an entrepreneur for 31 years. I think I've started 7 or 8 companies. You lose track after a while. I started being an investor about a decade ago. I started a business accelerator called Fledge. It turned into a global network. We now have programs all over the world helping thousands of entrepreneurs, investing in some of them, run a bunch of funds or things like funds. And the biggest of those at the moment is called Africa Eats, which is an investment holding company focused on food and ag in Africa. Also along the way, when this journey started into investing, I also started teaching MBAs. I couldn't find a book to teach with, so I started writing books. My book series is called The Next Step. And one of the books in that series is called The Realities of Funding a Startup.
Awesome. And man, if you have to check out Looney's books, by the way, wealth of knowledge. We'll leave your website and everything below. But now let's dive into this, the reality of funding, right? So what are some of these realities? What are we talking about here when we come up with this title, reality of funding? What's going on?
All right. Well, there's 2 realities. So there's a reality from the point of view of the entrepreneurs. That reality is that they think they have the best idea in the world. Because if they didn't think that, they wouldn't start their company. So they think they have this great idea. They think that just because they think it's great, others are going to think it's great. And they are generally frustrated that no one is funding them. Okay, first reality, you have a good idea. Whatever your idea is, it's good. But there are tens of thousands of others just as good. On the other side of the coin, there are the investors. And the reality that they have is they have a plethora of choices. There are definitely more startups worth funding than there are investors who write checks. That's whether it's individuals or family offices or seed funds or full-on venture capital firms. There's always more companies than there are investors, and always has been. Probably always will be, except in California. In San Francisco, there's plenty of money. Everywhere else in the world, there's a lack of money. So reality is that the investors get to say no as much as they want, and they do. And if you sit down with a serious conversation with an investor, they're always trying to find more deals. They always feel like they have if you're professional doing this or you're active at doing this, you feel like you have a huge amount of deal flow, but you always want more, and you always want more because you're looking for that jewel in there that you just can't pass up on. So on both sides, it's a depressing topic. On neither side are the realities of funding a happy topic. When I teach this to entrepreneurs, the last few years, I've always started the lesson by saying, you will be depressed by the end of this topic. Like by the end of this lecture, if you're still happy and you still want to be an entrepreneur, I've done something wrong, because the realities are harsh. And I'd say that because I used to be a techie, spent 20 years in the software space. I left it 10 years ago. I'm an impact investor now. I'm working in the mission-driven for-profit space. And there is so little money in that space compared to tech. And so there are even more great ideas hiding. There's so many more great ideas that are impactful and almost no investors that are looking for them. And one more before I let you chime in here. The other reality that I see that's becoming more and more true for all investment everywhere is that the pool of potential investees for the investors, or the pool of potential investors for the investees, is going global. And so it used to be, I've been doing this for 31 years. Back in the 90s, when I was out looking for money for my very first startup, got started in 92. You probably weren't even born in 92.
No, I wasn't.
Half the audience wasn't born in 92, or more than half. All right. Well, in 92, early 90s, before the dot-com bubble, we were looking for money for this startup. Well, we were looking in Seattle because that's where we were. The internet didn't, the web didn't exist yet. There was no way to find investors in San Francisco easily, or Los Angeles, or, oh my God, New York City. Like, what are you going to do? Pull out the white pages? You can't pull out the yellow pages and look up investor. They're not there. So back then, 95% of all the investment was happening within the same city, right? Except for San Francisco. They're always an outlier. And these days, it's down to like 75% for tech. And it's always been lower than that for impact, because the impact is usually not here. The impact is usually somewhere else in the world. And so when I raise money now for Africa Eats, which is an African company, oh my God, we have investors from all over the place, because it doesn't matter where they're from. And, unless they're from Africa, then they're not picking Africa Eats to have the impact in Africa because it's local to them. They're picking it because they want to have the impact there as opposed to somewhere else. And so this reality, this bigger modern 2020s reality, 21st century reality is it's getting harder to find these matches because the potential investee or investor is somewhere else in the world.
Wow, so that's very interesting, and we see how things have switched. The complexities have switched quite a bit. But I wanted to bring something up that I've recently seen a piece of yours, and as we mentioned earlier, you do quite a bit of writing, blogs and books, right? And a recent piece of yours is fertilizing, weeding, and watering, right? And I said this earlier when we were just synergizing here, that this sounds something similar to, there's a scripture that goes, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gives the increase, right? And this was Paul speaking, the Apostle Paul speaking when he was saying this, and you were going to make a joke or say something very snarky around there, but we didn't get the point. I hit record. So if you want to share that insight, and then we could dive into what is the premise of this and how does this relate to the conversation at hand?
Well, I don't remember exactly what comment I was going to make, but I'm sorry. When you bring up the metaphor of gardening and startups, right? So
yeah,
I'm a startup gardener. I guess not a term I've used before, but that's what I am. I'm a startup farmer.
Right.
At the scale I'm doing it now. So I don't plant seeds anymore. Back in 10 years ago in the Accelerator world, we were planting seeds. We would get people who show up with some decent ideas, and we would help them flesh them out. When I was teaching MBAs, we were gardening and playing around in a play garden. We would throw together ideas literally in an hour, and then we would play with them as business plans over the next few weeks. These days, again, back to realities. These days, the companies that apply to accelerators already have revenues. The seedling already exists. Right? Seed was planted before. The companies that get funded by venture capitalists. Oh my God! In the 90s, when I first got my first check from a venture capital fund, I had a prototype that was built in a weekend. Like we didn't have any customers. Oh my God, customers? No, we had a prototype. It looked good. It demoed good. They wrote a check. I got a company funded on a PowerPoint from venture capitalists in the 90s.
Wow.
You can't do that anymore. That just doesn't happen. Now you have to have the seedling or the tree. Like there's got to be a little baby tree there, or the crop's coming out of the ground if it's edible. You got to see it. You got to be able to say, okay, I'm going to harvest this in a few months. I just need the fertilizer. Can you pay me? Can you? I need the money for the fertilizer. I need the money for the watering. I need the money for the time to do the weeding and whatnot to make this crop grow. That's what funding is about these days. So it's not snarky, but that's just that's what it is in that metaphor.
No, I get that. Now, one thing is that I think about, because I've hosted several pitch events over the past year and a half. I mean, about 3 a week, right? And one thing I tend to observe is the founders come with this kind of, I guess I could say, entitled mentality to the investor's capital, right? Because I have an idea, therefore I must get your money. And even if I don't have an MVP yet, I should get your money to test out my idea on your expense, right? And I'm like, ooh, that doesn't really fly well. And with that being said, I want us to tap into what is the mindset of the investor, because I think that is often missed, right? I think that the entrepreneur is typically thinking of themselves versus thinking of, hey, how do we build synergy here? How can this be a mutual relationship to where you want to write a check and this is something that you'll be enthusiastic about? I don't think a lot of founders really understand what the investor is after. I don't think they really put themselves in the shoe of the investor. Like, dude, this is someone who's busted their ass for years to build some wealth. And like yourself, they want their wealth to continue among their offsprings, right? They want something generational. So them investing is not them saying, I want to throw money away, right?
Oh yeah, but you got to remember that when we're talking about individuals and family offices, it's to play money. So the only money that gets put into startups from...
What about the angel investors, though? That's family office, but there are many different players.
It's a huge spectrum, but in general, like for 99% of angels, and I say family offices because sometimes it's couples or siblings or a whole family investing together. We just call that a family office. So when it's an angel, almost always the money that they're putting into startups is money they can lose. It's their play money. It's 10%.
But does that mean they want to lose it?
No, they don't want to lose it. But if it does get lost, they're not poor. Like, this is not the money.
Right, that's true.
Okay. So when you talk about, I want to pass on generational wealth, that's already taken care of. This is the fun money. And fun is a key piece. So I got a friend, he describes it as a cocktail party. Cocktail party. The most important aspect of why an angel invests in a company is so that, and I don't know how this works in the pandemic, is so that when they're at the next cocktail party or the next golf outing or the next whatever, they can tout to their friend, oh my God, I found this new company, I invested in it, it's amazing. Like, the ability to tout and hold it up to your friend as something that makes you look smart, that is the primary driver for angels. Not making money. Like, if they just want to make money, they can just buy an index fund to the S&P 500. It's going to make money. Buy Berkshire Hathaway. Like, you want to invest in companies and make money, just hand it to Warren Buffett. He'll make you money. But if you want to have fun and you want to be able to, there's a few more aspects to it, right? Investors invest in startups. Angels invest in startups because they want to have the excitement of being in a startup without any of the work. Right? Startups are really hard. And so if you're an investor and you own a little piece of the company, then all their upsides are more things you can feel good about. Downsides, not so much, but downsides won't hurt you because, again, it's your play money. But first and foremost, it's all about telling your friends how smart you are and how well connected you are. And oh my God, look at this thing I found.
Okay, so I may be off there, and I think that if we were to speak to about 20 different investors, there will be probably 25 different response on this. So, okay, this is definitely one perspective, and I concur. Okay, now because that is definitely a component of it, right? Now,
Yeah.
I want to know though. Let's dive a little bit deeper
Hold on.
outside of that.
Before we step out, I want to. You're skeptical, so I want to give you a little proof. Okay? I wrote a blog post. I got like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It was called "Novel but Certain." One of my favorites. It's not.
Okay.
It's not one that's read a lot. So go search "Novel but Certain," everybody, on and Looney. It'll find you. Luni. And so here's one more reality is and I've seen this play out so many times. You bring a boring business. So why isn't every corner bakery well funded, right? Or whatever, your corner shop in your neighborhood, they want money too. They need $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 to be better, whether it's the pizzeria or the bakery or whatnot.
It's too boring. It's boring,
right? So I can't, as an investor, go and say, "Oh, well, I love this bakery. I'm going to hand them 10 grand. I'm going to lend them 10 grand. They can grow and thrive and, hire some more people and whatnot." And I can't tout that to my friends because it's boring. It's just a bakery, right? But when I find, the next, cloud-based blockchain mobile avatar app, I can tell that to my friends because it's new and it's novel and it's interesting. It's going to lose me all my money. Like that cutting edge stuff. It's most likely, you laugh, but half of all the companies fail in 3 years. So it's probably going to lose me money, whereas that bakery is going to make me money because it's a bakery, right? If you like it and other people like it, it's going to succeed. But that novelty gets in the way. And so investors specifically go out of their way to pick novelty because it's novel, because it's not boring. And that, again, that's what that first driver is. But go ahead, take us in whatever direction you want to
go. Okay. No, I think you have a point there. And I sort of see that, like, that's why I really like Africa Eats and what you're doing even with Fledge. They're companies that are boring, but they're actually driving a return. They are actually doing what it's supposed to do, right? And you're not having to wait for this grandeur exit where you're hoping to get a 10x plus return or whatnot, but you're getting consistent return around that 2.5, 3x return. Oh my goodness. I think Looney has COVID. No, I'm just playing. No, but you get what I'm saying. You're investing into the boring companies that's actually driving a return ASAP versus waiting for some tech to exit in 10 years or.
Yeah, the novelty is it's food and ag in Africa, and
right.
Of your audience, how many of them have investments in food and ag in Africa? Probably none. So there's some novelty there.
I think I have probably two that would be listening to this that's very interested in ESG. So if you're checking this out, you know who you are.
2 out of a million is not a lot, right? Right. But I'm going to pull this back because the number one thing that's needed by all the companies that are in this Africa Eats portfolio is trucks, which is why trucks is on my mind. Like they need trucks. You know how hard it is to go to an investor and say, I need $500,000 worth of trucks. Like it doesn't work because it's very hard to come up with a compelling reason to an investor on why they should provide money for trucks.
Why do they need trucks though? What role does that play? Is this for import export or what's going on?
No, it's because farmers grow food and people in the cities eat the food, and you need a truck to get the food from the farmer to the city. Like we're not talking. It's just been going on for 100. It used to be carriages. It's been trucks since like 1890 in most of the world, and there just aren't enough trucks to do this in Africa. The food gets lost on the way. There are no professional trucks. That's it. We just need to fund professional box trucks with refrigerators built in. It's not exciting.
Interesting.
It's boring as hell.
But it makes me think of something that I've been thinking about because I've been diving a lot into the logistics side of things and import export. and there may be some interesting players in that space that I can have a conversation with surrounding this. So that's very interesting. I'm glad you actually brought things back to this truck stuff. I'm gonna put a star on this right here. But
Yeah.
okay. Oh man, this is interesting. This is very interesting. Now, mindset of the investor. Can we dive back into that, because I think that
Yeah.
it's okay. So one part is, showing off, right? Uh, Now, what else is there? What are the founder communities missing out on when they're engaging in conversation with these investors, and they think they're doing a good job, but not so much so? What is the missing link?
Oh, it's not one thing. It's not 10 things. It's 100 things.
Can you
So
give us 10 things?
I'll try. Let's not number them. Let's just toss them out.
Okay.
So let's go. Let's go all the way to. There's a language to startup investing, especially in the tech space. There's a language that's been developed since the '60s, and so when I'm in the space and you're pitching a company to me, and I say, "Great, um, uh, sounds great. I'm in, uh, and I'm in for, I don't know. Let's say I'm a seed fund, and I say I'm in at 1 on 5. Like, if you don't know what the hell I mean by 1 on 5, and most of the audience probably doesn't, then if you're stuck in a spot. Either you have to say, I don't know what that means, in which case it makes you sound, as an entrepreneur, it makes you sound stupid, which is why most entrepreneurs wouldn't say that. They'll just nod and try and find someone who will interpret for them. But there's just this huge amount of jargon and the terms of the actual investments and whatnot that they're just the norm out there. They've been going on since the '60s, and it's just the way investors talk and the way investors think about how the deal gets put together. And if you're a first-time entrepreneur, you don't know these things. Like, where are you supposed to find out?
So are
Brad
you going to
Feld.
define that for our audience, or just keep going?
No, I'll let them go look it up. Well, we're just talking. If we want to do the realities of startup lecture, that's another whole hour. Let's just skip that. Go look it up. You'll find it online somewhere. Or go get Brad Feld's book on how to be smarter than a VC, something like that. VC deals. He'll explain it in his book. And so there's things like that get in the way. There's things. Oh my God, the one that hits me all the time is there's an expectation on what's in a pitch deck. There's an expectation of having a pitch deck. Of course, there's a pitch deck, right? Well, we didn't have pitch decks in the '90s because PowerPoint didn't exist yet. No one had email yet, so it's come along in the .com bubble, the pitch deck idea. But there's an expectation for what's in the pitch deck. And if you're an active investor, if you're just an angel who's in an angel group, you've seen 100 of them. If you're an active investor like me, you've literally seen, I don't know, 50,000 decks. And so people send me decks all the time. And for some reason, they don't spend the 10 minutes finding out what should be in them. I don't know. They make it up, or they got some bad advice somewhere. And they send a deck that just doesn't answer the questions. Either it's 40 slides long, in which case I'm not going to read all of them, or it just didn't answer all the questions in its 15, 20 slides it's supposed to have. And my response back to them is, thanks for reaching out. Here's a link to the lesson that teaches you how to make a pitch deck. Send me one when you got a good one. And if I have a lull in my life, and the idea looks good, or the company looks decent, I might send them some feedback on their actual pitch deck. Like, I'll go out of my way to do that, as opposed to just ignoring it. But if they're sending, also the other, we'll get to the third one in a second. But yeah, just the idea that they would bother to send out a half-written deck, like that's missing half the information. No financials. Like, why on earth would you send out a pitch deck to an investor and not include anything about how much money you make or will make? Like, it's just a waste of everyone's time. Which gets to the next one, which is, the wrong size ask. That one gets hit a lot as well. There's two ways to make that mistake. First one is to ask for $500,000. In the last 10 years, $500,000 is just the normal ask, right? If it's exactly a $500,000 ask, then I presume as an investor that you've done no work to figure out how much money you need. And therefore, you have no business plan, and therefore, I'm not funding you. And no one should fund a plan that's for exactly $500,000. It just shows laziness. So you got to build a financial model. I don't care if you're building a tech company and an app or whatnot. Still build a financial model. It can take you an hour.
And I've seen a stat, Looney.
You really need, ask for that. It's not going to be $500,000.
I've also seen a statistic that shows that companies that are raising that on their first go around statistically they don't go on to be successful as for companies that are raising the 1 million.
Well,
that's just something interesting that I've seen.
There's a meme that started in Steve Blank's crowd in when would that be? He wrote the 4 steps in 2004, and the Startup Owner's Manual came out in like 13. There's this meme in the app world that specifically like the part of tech that's just like consumer based, that you don't even need a business plan anymore. You don't even need a pitch deck. Just you need your screenshots of your app, and that's good. And build an audience, and then you'll make money as soon as you have an audience. You'll figure out that later. Like the Google guys did this. They went around to VCs pitching a 3-slide deck. Slide 2 was, here, look at our exponential growth of searches. Slide 3 did not have any financials on it. Slide 3 was how much money they wanted. And I talked to a VC that turned them down, and they said, I can't fund them. There's no revenue. Not only did they not tell us their revenues, they had no revenue. They didn't even have a plan for how to make revenues. Like, okay, just again, take an hour or two and make a plan on how much money you might make. And put that in, and that plan should figure out how much money you need. And basically this meme of I don't need to do any planning is wrong. If you want to succeed, make a plan. If you want to succeed, make plan A, and then figure out what's wrong with plan A. Just if you can't figure it out yourself, one of the exercises I do is take the business model canvas. Again, I did this with students. Take an hour and fill out a business model canvas. Might take you 2 hours to read the book, if you don't know what that is. Once you have your canvas written out, no more than 3 things in any box. Close your eyes, point to a box with your eyes closed, and then cross it out and assume that whatever's in there is wrong. And now fix your plan. And then close your eyes and do it again and fix your plan. And do it 3 times on that business model canvas. And then take the original one again, do it again. Start at a different part that's wrong. That will give you plan B. That will give you an idea of what's actually going to happen, because plan A never works. And so I like to do this exercise. Often we'll get slight tweaks to the plan. Sometimes we'll get a much better MVP. And every once in a while, we just get in a much, much better plan. And we used to do this in class in 3 hours. So like instead of going and watching a Netflix film or 2 or a TV series, you could have a much better business plan. Okay, back to the realities of funding. The next mistake that the entrepreneurs make is they just ask for too much. So if you have an idea and no prototype, anything you ask for is too much. Nobody's going to fund that. If you have a prototype and no customers, anything you ask for is too much. Nobody wants to fund that, pretty much. If you have a few starting customers, you got a product in the market, your MVP's out there, you got a few happy customers, you got hopefully some revenues from that, then you get to the next piece of reality, which is for real businesses, not for pie in the sky potential unicorn stuff, but real businesses, you can't ask for more than you earned in the last year. This one gets hung up a lot in the work I do overseas. So we can write small checks in my firms. So a company comes along and they earned $100,000 last year. Great. In Africa, that's not a small company. Well, it's small, but it's not a tiny company. And so if you earned 100,000 last year, yeah, you can ask for 100,000, but you can't ask for 150 or 200 or 500. That's too much. You earned 200,000 last year, you can ask for 200,000. You only earned $5,000 last year, you got an MVP. Anywhere in the world, that's an MVP. It's really hard to ask for anything. You might find a stipend check from an accelerator. You might find a little grant, but you can't be asking for $250,000 when you've only earned 5,000. There's just a disconnect there. And this goes all the way up to the millions. You earned $1 million last year. Don't ask for two. The investors will usually just quietly say no, or will just put your deal aside and go look at the next one. So keep your asks at a reasonable size compared to where your business is. What else out there? Don't come calling for capital if the team is one person. Funding solopreneurs is a really bad idea. It's fine if you're a sole founder and you've built a team, but if the whole team of the whole company is just you, or if the whole team is you, but your buddy or your spouse or somebody else is part-time, yeah, go build the team first. Investors will tell you, Hue, if you actually sit down and ask investors what they're looking for, the answer is team. And if you push them and say, okay, well, what else are you looking for? They'll say, well, second is team. And you go, no, but seriously, what's the first three things you look for in a deal? And a real good investor will say, well, it's team, team, and team. And then odds of success, right? Or something else that sounds like that. It's not actually what they're looking for. Okay, so what I will say is, first and foremost, they want a story to tell their friends. Second thing is they want an opportunity that's big enough to merit an investment. So again, that's really why the corner bakery doesn't get the money, because for the risk you're going to take on the corner bakery, you can't charge them enough. So it's got to be a big enough opportunity, varies per investor and check size. Then comes team, team, team. Then it's, does this person I'm talking to and the team they've built inspire confidence in me that they can do what they said? So if it's someone who's been in the industry before, that's perfect, and well spoken. If it's someone who's well spoken but new industry to them, okay. If it's well spoken enough. If it's someone who's not well spoken, they're not going to get any funding. I had one last week that was pretty typical of a tech entrepreneur. He jumped straight into his solution. I just let him go because I haven't done that in a while. 20 minutes later, I still don't know what problem he's solving. And, by 5 minutes, I didn't really care anymore because I really didn't like what his space he was in. But I was just curious on how far he would go. So I just let the line run for like 20 minutes. And, it was a slightly interesting conversation. But at that point, I said, well, it's been 20 minutes and you haven't told me what problem you're solving. And I haven't figured it out. And since I don't know what the problem is, I don't know who the customers are. You haven't mentioned them either. Like, it sounds like you're a technologist and, you know how to build technology, but not a business. And, we cut that call off.
Yes. If I got a penny even of how often that happens, I won't be rich, but I'll have a little bit more money. I see it happen.
The joke is, if I had a nickel for every time that happened, I'd have a lot of nickels.
I have a lot of nickels. That's a good one. That's a better one. With how my bank account set up, some pennies is not going to help me right now. But no, that's a really good one. And I think that I've seen that so many times. And you're just, during and after, you're like, wait, what just happened? Like, you're just more confused.
In the accelerator space, we get thousands of applications at a time. And so I run through them all. I just did 1,400 for the Land Accelerator Africa a few months ago. 1,400 applications. I get through all of them in 2 days. And so you got to go through fast. So we'll finish off with this little anecdote, right?
Yeah.
So here's reality for a early entrepreneur who really wants the help to learn how to do this for real, right? So you apply to an accelerator, and there's 10,000 accelerators out there. Some of them are good. You find yourself a good accelerator, you apply. Well, first off, you're one of 1,000 that applied. right? We have a program in Africa with 1,400 applications. So somebody's going to read them. That's somebody like me.
Yeah.
Okay, 1,400. I'm not going to budget a week to go through all those. I'm going to budget as little time as possible. 2 full days, 2 full work days with some email and a few calls in between. So I'm going to sit down, and my goal is to get through 100 an hour. 200 an hour is better, but I'm going to get through at least 100 an hour. I'm going to spend 10 hours. That's 1,000 applications. So it's going to take me 14 hours to get through the whole thing, maybe. And so how much time and attention am I going to give to your application? Well, I'll tell you, if it starts with an app that, I'm done. I'm done completely. I'm on the next one already. Because if it's an app that, well, that's not a problem. Nobody in the world says, my problem is I don't have enough apps. So I don't really care what your app does. You guys start me with a problem statement or something interesting. So that one line tweet, in my application, it's 150 characters. What do you do in 150 characters? Yeah, make that interesting. Spend some time actually iterating to make that an interesting statement as opposed to some facts. So some of those catch my eye, and I'll go in deeper and I'll get further in. But a lot of them will be in that same category of here's a solution, no problem in sight. Next one is that there's asymmetry. Oh, sorry, I didn't answer the whole question there. What I'm looking for beyond things that solve problems is I'm looking for something novel, or I'm looking for something I know has made money in the past. So honey companies. I have 5 honey companies in Africa Eats. I like honey companies. So in 150 characters, I can get some gist of what you do. I've probably seen it before. It's very rare that it's something novel. So I'll completely novel. So I got some benchmark, and then I'll go one level deeper. Okay, where are you in your journey? Are you brand new? Are you 2 years in? Are you struggling after 10 years and not giving up? And then I'll dive into, how you solve this problem and what your specific solution is and what your customer segments are. And eventually I'll get down to team. So even though team is actually more important, I'll look at that last. I missed it. And I will do this all in minutes. So you've spent an hour filling out the application, and I'm going to review it. Ideally, in a minute, because I'm trying to do 100 an hour. And I don't care how well you write English, because I work with entrepreneurs around the world. So I'm not going to judge you on your English writing skills. But I am going to judge you on the brevity and clarity of your content. So if you say, we aggregate honey from farmers, you say that in any order of words in any choice of English word, that's fine. That's sufficient. But if you spend 150 characters and I still don't know what you do, I'm going to move on to the next one. And if I get to the question of, who are your customers, and you answer, people with money, I'm going to move on. You got to have a coherent, good answer to these questions in a few sentences.
Looney, it's been a pleasure having you on. This is this is one that must be shared all over, and I'm going to make sure that as many founders listen to this EP. That was obviously, literally, we did not plan this at all. This is just improv, and yet it's so amazing. So I appreciate you, Looney. I'm eternally grateful for your continued support along this amazing journey. For more episodes like these, please like, share, subscribe, and click the bell for upcoming videos.